Episodes 4 and 5 of season 4 of Bel-Air were straight fire. But I cannot believe that we only have 3 more episodes left and then we're done with Bel-Air forever? Huh? It just don't seem fair. But let me tell you, they are doing such a great job with paying homage to the OG Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, especially when we saw Carlton do his little OG dance. But before I get into my recap of episodes 4 and 5, let me introduce myself. If you're new here, my name is Brandi, and I realize that you could be on any channel in the world, but you're right here with me, and I really do appreciate that. So please go ahead and like this video. It really does help the channel out, and again, I really appreciate it. And also subscribe to the channel if you do like watching TV show reviews and also movie reviews. So episode 4 opens up with Will working on his college letters. He's sending out letters along with his basketball highlight reels, and Carlton is right there helping him out. And Will, he only has a few months left to get recruited, and plus he needs to get a D1 scholarship to get into college because his mom does not want Viv and Phil paying for anything, and I don't blame her. Then we see Carlton, he gets a notification on his phone from Princeton University. So the results are in whether or not he's going to be accepted into his dream school. So he must have gathered the family and read the results out loud. We see that Uncle Phil, he's in the backyard blowing off some steam, punching the bag. And Aunt Viv, she goes out there to talk to him, and he is just really distracted. She's telling him that her girls are coming over later, you know, that she has a lot to do. And you could tell that he is just not really into the conversation. And she says to him, well, today is the day that you have to handle like the dirty money laundering business with Jeffrey, right? And he's like, yeah. And throughout both of these episodes 4 and 5, my boy Uncle Phil is just so stressed, and Aunt Viv too. So much so that I really hope that Aunt Viv makes it through her pregnancy. She's already high risk because of her age, but with all of the stress that she's enduring and what we see at the end of episode 5, I don't know. So Carlton, he comes out there, he tells them to come in, and they all gather around. And Hillary, she's there too, just on a FaceTime call, but she's not there physically. So he reads the results and he is accepted into his dream school. And I'm happy for him because Carlton worked really hard. Although he did lie, you know, he stole Amira's story, which we'll talk about shortly. Now we see them at school and everybody is congratulating Carlton on such big news. But Mrs. Basson, she comes to him like, listen, I need to talk to you later. And he's curious, like, what's that about? So later on, he goes to Miss Basson's office and Amira is already in there sitting down. And Miss Basson says, listen, I got a call from Mr. Fuller from Princeton University, and he told me how much he loved your story, how it isn't every day, how you hear about a student ODing and almost drowning in a pool. And she said, imagine my surprise when I read Amira's story and she has a similar essay to yours. And the counselor, Miss Basson, she immediately blames Amira. She says, Amira, you cannot be stealing Carlton's work. You know, you need to write your own original essay. And the counselor just automatically thought that Carlton was the truth teller and that Amira was the liar, which was not right. I love the way Amira did not rat him out in this scene. Although Carlton, the right thing for him to do in that situation is to speak up and to say, no, she didn't steal the story. I stole her story. But Carlton did not do that. And Amira, she protected him because she loves Carlton. And that's what us women do anyway. We are always protecting the men. So Amira storms out of Miss Basson's office and Carlton is trying to catch up to her. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? Why didn't you say anything in there? And I'm like, Carlton, the first thing you need to say is sorry, not why didn't you say anything in there? And she's like, listen, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, you just can't swoop in and just steal my life story. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. And she kept him on pins and needles throughout this entire episode, and he was sweating bullets. Now we see Aunt Viv. She's at an outdoor prenatal yoga class, and it's a lot of other women in the class that are pregnant as well, but they are a lot younger than her. And it's 2 ladies, they're talking about they want to get a snoo for their baby. You know, the baby bassinet that helps the baby sleep longer during the night. And Aunt Viv was like, listen, you don't need all of that. All you got to do is bundle that baby up, put that baby on his belly, and the baby will sleep through the night. And the girls are looking at Aunt Viv like she got 2 heads because her information is very outdated. But mind you, Aunt Viv hasn't had a baby in 14, 15 years, so that information might have been relevant then, but it is not relevant now. But anyway, then we see Erica walk up, and Erica is pregnant, and Aunt Viv, she shows her a little bit of love, but you could tell that Aunt Viv still has a lot of animosity towards Erica because Erica was trying to sleep with Uncle Phil on multiple occasions. So Aunt Viv don't don't really mess with her like that, but she wishes her well and she moves about her day. Later on, we see her with her girls. We see her with Joan, and now we meet Jill Marie Jones, whose name was Pamela, on this show. They're all chilling, having a self-care day, and Aunt Viv is feeling left out, because the ladies are drinking bubbly. They're about to smoke some weed. But you could tell during this whole self-care scene that Aunt Viv is just very lonely and left out. She can't drink, she can't smoke, she can't even go to the same restaurants as the ladies, have oysters, anything like that. So you could tell she's feeling a little bit down, and she's probably considering hitting Erica up because it might be nice to have another friend her age that's pregnant. Now we see Will in the hallway at school, and he approaches his basketball coach and he asks him for advice on getting into USC. And his coach is like, listen, it's going to be hard for you because you took the entire summer off. You might have to get creative. You're doing what you need to do on the court, but maybe you need to pay closer attention to what you're doing off the court. And you could tell that really struck a chord with Will. He's like, okay, I need to get creative. And we see him later on. He's sitting down with Lisa, and they're looking through the roster of USC. And they come across a player named Gavin White, and they find out that he's from Philly too, just like Will. So Will is like, that might be my way in. I'm gonna hit him up, I'm gonna DM him and see if some way I can hook up with Gavin, and then Gavin can link me with the coach at USC, and that'll be my in. Now we see Will and Carlton go to their first community service class at Promising Choices. They walk in, the class is very chaotic, it's loud, it's music blasting, and Carlton is like looking appalled, like, what is this? Carlton not about that life. He grew up a lot differently than Will. And Will is like, listen, it's just a typical Philly class in my opinion. And Will goes on to say how easy that the community service is going to be. He's like, listen, man, we just going to have to pick up some garbage on the side of the road, put in our hours. It's probably going to be some old retired man teaching a class, right? And the man comes up to them and is like, listen, do you think it's really going to be that easy? And Will is like, man, easy money, man. Nice to meet you, man. I'm Will Smith. This is Carlton. And the guy is like, listen, my name is Leroy, a.k.a. Mr. Carter, your instructor. And the boys just look flabbergasted like, damn, we done started off on a wrong foot with our instructor that literally holds our future in his hands. So for right now, they thinking that they on Mr. Carter's shit list. So he goes up to the front of the class to start instructing. And he says that the first lesson that is my brother's keeper. And he lets the students know that, listen, you have an accountability partner. Whoever's sitting next to you, that's your partner. If they fail, you fail. If you fail, they fail. And please do not be late. So it's not going to be as easy as Will and Carlton think. Now we see Will and Carlton, they're exiting the building from the morning session at Promising Choices. And Carlton, you could tell that he's very worried because he hasn't heard from Amira. So he doesn't know her next move, whether or not she's going to tell on him or not that he stole her story. And also Gavin actually hit Will back. Will DM'd Gavin, which is a player at USC. And again, Will is just trying to get an in with USC, trying to get to that coach. And Gavin hit him back like, listen, thanks for hitting me up. I'm having a kickback at the crib. Won't you come through? And Carlton, he really does not want Will to go to this day party, obviously, because their futures are connected. If Will gets back late, that's also a strike against Carlton. So Carlton is like, you know what? I'm gonna come with you. So they call it Uber and they proceed to go to Gavin's day party, but they gotta make it back to community service in time later on that day. Meanwhile, back at the Banks' house, Lisa stops by and Aunt Viv answers the door. And who is there? No other than Jackie, right? Jackie and Lisa do not get along at this point. Aunt Viv, she knows that, and she senses the tension between the girls right away, and she helps them squash their beef. And she tells the girls, like, listen, you're both at a crossroads in your life. You're about to go off to college, and you have more in common than you think. Both of you are navigating this life without your mother. And we know that Lisa, her mom died a couple years ago. And Jackie, she hasn't seen her mom since middle school. And that is a connection between the two ladies. So they start talking and they actually go to Gavin's party as well to go link up with Will and Carlton. Now we see Phil and Jeffrey, and they're at the construction site in a mobile trailer office. And they're mapping out their business plan to clean the $50 million that Dominique is demanding that they clean. And Phil, he's spearheading this project at this point, although he really didn't want to be involved. But once Dominique had his house vandalized and all of the threats to his family, he's like, listen, he feels like he has to do what he has to do to protect his family, but he wants to be in control of everything at this point. So Phil decides that the $50 million that he wants to clean as quickly as possible, and he wants to use 5 businesses right in the area, right near the construction site of Legacy Heights. And we're talking about businesses that are really like cash heavy, like laundromats, a car wash they mentioned, and a parking lot. But one investor, he actually backed out. An investor that was an owner of a mini mart. He wanted no parts of this situation, because if you sign a contract with Uncle Phil, that means that he is part owner of your business. And that owner of the mini mart is like, listen, I built this business from the ground up, so I'm not going to have you co-owning my business. So now they need a fifth business, again, that's within a certain radius from the construction site, because they don't want to set off any red flags. And Phil mentions to Jeffrey, like, listen, like we need a fifth business, and we just want to make sure that we're in charge of the finances, because we want to make sure that all these business owners pretty much, like, they can't get locked up because they have no knowledge of the money laundering, just in case things go left. And Jeffrey says, well, things don't go left when I'm involved. And I'm like, Jeffrey, shut up. Shut up, Jeffrey. I cannot stand Jeffrey at this point. Again, he brought all this trouble to this family's doorstep. I mean, Jeffrey should have just went on ahead, took a bullet, went to jail or something. Like, why are you bringing all this trouble to the banks? But I will say this. I hate Jeffrey right now, because all throughout these seasons, Jeffrey has been very loyal. He has been a great house manager to the family. So I hate Jeffrey, but shit, it is what it is. And now we see Pamela, again, played by Jill Marie Jones from Girlfriends, and she stops past Jazz's business. His business is called Charlie's, and his uncle apparently passed the business down to him, I think. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, she passes by because, he wants to start a weed dispensary, and she works for the government, but I forgot what it is, CDC? CDDC. But anyway, she's a big wig and she could really help him out. She goes, she sizes up his business, and she likes that he already has a built-in clientele because he sells the vinyls out of his shop. And she tells him that he at least needs about $250,000 just to get the weed dispensary up and running. And he's like, where am I going to get that money from? I already got denied the grant. Like, it's no way somebody is just going to front me $250,000. So now we're at Gavin White's kickback party, and Will and Carlton are there, and Will is doing the most. But nothing is getting Gavin's attention until Will suggests that they do a little one-on-one basketball, right? Right in the living room, right on the little makeshift basketball court that Gavin has set up. And Gavin says, all right, I'll do it. But if I win, then I'm not contacting the coach for you. The coach will not be coming to see you play. And Will is like, all right, bet. But the thing is, Will loses the bet. And you can tell that he is heartbroken. But then he doesn't have too much time to sulk in his feelings, because he sees Lisa, Jackie, and Amira walk into the party. And they look so cute. These girls are so pretty. They walk in looking like a singing group, okay? And he's like, wait, how are you two linked up? Like, talking about Lisa and Jackie. And they tell him that, Aunt Viv connected them, and that, they're cool. They squashed their beef as of now. And Amira, she has a little side conversation with Carlton, and Carlton is like, listen, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to tell on me that I stole your story? And Amira is like, no, but I want you to do one thing. And that one thing that she wanted Carlton to do was do his OG dance in front of everybody, which is so embarrassing. It's like a humiliation ritual, right? So Carlton, he goes out, he tells everybody to clear the floor, move out the way. And Carlton gets out there and he starts dancing. But Will was so embarrassed, mind you, right? These people were clowning Carlton the whole time, and Will was kind of joining in on the fun and clowning Carlton as well. But he's not really going to leave his cousin out to drown like that. That's one thing about Will. He does have a lot of loyalty. So he jumps out there and he starts jumping and doing a little tango OG dance with Carlton too. And I love this scene so much. It was so wholesome. And while Will is thinking that, his opportunity is done, Gavin will never reach out to him. Him actually helping Carlton out and jumping in and doing that dance with Carlton actually made Gavin reach out, because we see later on in this episode, Gavin calls Will like, listen, I think that was really dope what you did for your little cousin, man. You ain't leave him out there to drown, and that's what I'm all about. So I contacted the coach. I talked to him, and he's going to come out to see you play, but I can't guarantee you when he's going to come out to see you play, so just be prepared. And Will is so grateful. But it just goes back to the title of this episode, My Brother's Keeper. And again, I just love their brotherhood, Carlton and Will, because Will was not going to let Carlton be out there dancing, looking a fool alone. Meanwhile, Uncle Phil has popped up at Jazz's business, and he's like, listen, I heard that you need an investor. Pam told me, and I'm here to help. Are you down if I sign up to be an investor with you? And Jazz is like, hell yeah. And I'm like, no, Uncle Phil, why did you go to Jazz? Like, leave Jazz out of this drama, out of this illegal activity. Although I know Uncle Phil was screaming the whole episode, like, the businesses aren't going to know anything about it. They have plausible deniability if shit hits the fan. But listen, don't bring Jazz into this. Like, leave Jazz out of it. But anyway, Jazz is ecstatic. And we see that later on, Pam comes to visit him. And Pam, she wants more than just to congratulate him. She is attracted to him. She wants him in a very sensual way, to say the least. She comes on to him and, he falls prey to her advances. And I'm like, damn, she like him young, because I know that Pam got to be at least Aunt Viv age. And Aunt Viv was like, 47 or something like that. And Jazz is like, I don't know how old Jazz is on the show, but I'm guessing like he's around 20, 21, just a little bit older than Will and Carlton, just a few years. But I don't know. I think that's just very complicated. And you know what happens when Pam gets mad if Jazz doesn't want to sleep with her anymore? Now we're at the end of the episode and we see that Will and Carlton, they are rushing to get back to the community service program because they cannot be late. So Lisa is driving them, Jackie is in the passenger seat, and they're flying down the highway trying to get back to the community service program. But unfortunately, they are a few seconds late, and Uncle Snoop, he closes the door on them. And now Will and Carlton, they're just sitting outside in the hallway of Promising Choices, and they're just reflecting on everything, just waiting out there, just doing some deep thinking. And when that community service ends, Uncle Snoop comes out and he sees them waiting there. And he's like, what the hell are you boys just doing out here, waiting here, right? But he actually gives them another chance. And he says, just come back tomorrow. Be early. Make sure you're not late. And I thought it was so funny how Uncle Snoop was calling them Bash and Bash because they vandalized the G-Wagon, and that's the whole reason that they're doing a community service. But I was also sad that the community service, it ended so soon, and we didn't get to see a whole lot of Snoop because we didn't see Uncle Snoop in episode 5. We only got to see him in this one episode. And as Uncle Snoop is going on and he's lecturing the boys, like we see other scenes happening as well at the end of this episode. We see Aunt Viv. She's making amends with Erica. They're now doing yoga together. They're holding hands. They're doing poses together. And I'm like, damn, Aunt Viv. I know you're lonely. I know you need somebody to connect with, but not Erica. Please, I can never be friends with Erica again. We see a very sweet scene between Lisa and Jackie, right? Lisa is encouraging Jackie to call her mom. Lisa is like, listen, I wish my mom was still around. If my mom didn't pass away, I would have loved to call her and told her that I got accepted into college. But your mom is still alive. You had an opportunity to call her and tell her that you got into Juilliard. So we see that Jackie is calling her mom. We don't hear the whole conversation as of yet, but it is beautiful that these two ladies squashed their beef, and that Aunt Viv linked them back together. But it's not beautiful that Aunt Viv and Erica squashed their beef. I don't agree with that. And lastly, we see Jeffrey and Uncle Phil, and they're ready to do like the first round of the cleaning the dirty money situation. So Jeffrey, he comes with a big bag of money to Uncle Phil's office, and he starts like delegating the money. He's like, this is for the laundromat. This is for the 2 parking lots. This is for the car wash. And the last pile of the money is for Charlie's, aka Jazz's business. And Jeffrey is like, are you sure you want to do this? And Phil is like, well, things don't go left when you're involved, right? So they are going to move forward with cleaning money through Jazz's businesses. Jazz is the 5th business, and they really did need a 5th business, but why? Like, I am so heartbroken by this whole storyline, but life goes on to episode 5. Gorilla Glue and Duct Tape was the title of episode 5. And this episode was a bit more slower paced, but more emotional in my opinion. So it opens up with Will playing basketball, and there are scouts in the crowd looking at Will play, and specifically the USC coach is finally there. It is 3 months later. Guys, comment down below. Do you think this timeline of this final season is going so fast? Because I think it's going so fast. In fact, Aunt Viv, her bump is way out now, and we find out that she is in her last trimester of her pregnancy. I mean, whoa, what are we going to see on these next 3 episodes? Are we going to see baby Nikki be born? Or are we going to see the boys go to college? I mean, whoa, they are speeding through this timeline. But anyway, we see Will. He's talking to the USC coach, and Will is not looking too happy. So we know that he's receiving bad news. And we see him tell Uncle Phil, Aunt Viv, and Carlton, who were there at the game as well, that the USC coach said that the roster is full. They don't have no room for Will no more. His time is up. It is too late for him. But a coach from the Stingrays, I forgot the exact name of the college, he comes up and he approaches Will, and he's talking to him about an opportunity to come play for them in the fall. He says that their point guard just hurt himself and they now have an opening and they can offer Will a full scholarship. And Aunt Viv, Uncle Phil, Carlton, they're all excited for Will. They're like, look at God. Like, you know, one door closes and another one opens. And the coach invites Will on the spot to like, listen, come see the campus tomorrow. Come meet the boys. Come check it out. And then you can make your decision from there. And we see that Will, he goes to the campus the next day. He talks to some players and they are very basketball focused. Meaning that Will, he really wants to pursue business as well, business as his major. But these guys, the other basketball players, they had dreams as well. Like one player that Will meets, he said that he wanted to do macroeconomics, but he had to give up his dream and do a much easier major because basketball is the focus. And when Will finally got to sit down with the coach and have a one-on-one on a campus, the coach basically tells Will, like, basketball is your major. Forget about your dreams and business. You are here to play, especially since you're here on a scholarship. Like, you need to make me look good. Like, this is my legacy as well. And I'm like, whoa, pause. Like, Will, you really need to consider whether or not you want to go to this college. Like, I know you're happy you probably got a free ride, but a free ride does not mean everything. And you can tell throughout this episode that Will is second guessing this decision, as well as Carlton, guys. We see that Carlton, it was his life dream to get into Princeton. But once he sat down with one of the Princeton alumni, he is second guessing his choice to go to Princeton because he is feeling like it might be like Bel-Air Academy all over again. Because he sat down with the black gentleman and he is telling him, like, listen, it's a lot of pressure because you're not just going to Princeton University for yourself. You're going for every little black kid that couldn't get into Princeton University. Like, listen, you got to take this serious. This is black excellence. Everything you do is under a magnifying glass. And you will feel very isolated at times because it's only a handful of black people there. And Carlton, you could tell his wheels are turning. And he's like, listen, do I want to do this all over again? Bel-Air Academy, where I have to meet such high standards and I have to feel this pressure? Now, on to better news. We see the little gender reveal that they did for Viv, Uncle Phil, and Carlton and Will were in attendance, and Ashley was on the phone because she's at a little like freshman trip or something like that. And they found out that it's a boy. But we already knew that it is a boy from the OG Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But throughout this whole episode, Viv is so stressed. And I'm like, are they going to deviate from the original storyline? Is Viv going to make it to the finish line? Because she is so stressed out with everything going on with the money laundering, with her to-do list, with the boys going off to college. I mean, Aunt Viv really needs to sit down and take a rest. And Aunt Viv, she tells Uncle Phil that she has so much to do. And one thing on her list was to school the boys and to give them life lessons, because she says that Carlton, he doesn't even know how to open a can opener. The boys don't know how to do laundry. Like, they're not going to know how to move when they're alone in these streets. And Uncle Phil agrees to help her. He's like, listen, I got you. You know, you could take that off of your to-do list. I'm going to teach them some life lessons before they go off to college. And we see Uncle Phil, he approaches the boys about fixing the old Mustang that he has in the garage that used to belong to his father. And it's an old classic car, a beautiful car, by the way. And he tells the boys, like, listen, you know, you're not going to have any weekend plans. You're going to spend time with me this weekend and you're going to fix this Mustang up. Uncle Phil, he walks away. He leaves the boys for a few minutes, and Carlton and Will, they start arguing and roughhousing around, and they end up breaking the side mirror on the Mustang. And Uncle Phil comes back out and he is flipping out. He's like, listen, you guys have one job and you can't do it. You're out here breaking the car that you're supposed to be fixing. And he is very disappointed in them and he dismisses them from that job. But we know that Phil is just stressed out from the whole money laundering situation. We see that he meets with Jeffrey on this episode and they have to do the last drop to Dominique. And Phil is telling Jeffrey, like, listen, I'm not going with you on this one. You go do the last drop. You can handle this. She better not want nothing else from me. I've been playing it real nice. I've been playing it real cool, but I could get gangster with it too. You know what I'm saying? I fulfill my obligations. I'm done. Give her the last drop and I'm done with it. And Jeffrey was trying to like talk back to Phil a little bit, but Phil was like, listen, I don't want to hear it. Drop that money off and be done, and I'm not coming with you. So we see Jeffrey, you know, he goes to meet with Dominique. I'm fighting real hard not to call her Noma. Noma from Power, right? So we see Jeffrey, he goes to meet with Noma, and she's like, listen, this is flawless. $50 million worth of money clean? That is amazing in such a short period of time. And I was so scared at this point that she was going to want more from the Banks family. But she said, basically, I'm done with the Banks family. And I let out a sigh of relief because I'm like, wow, I'm so glad that she's done with them, because being that they did it so flawlessly and they did it so quickly, cleaning them of money, I thought that she was going to want them to do it again. But she goes on to talk to Jeffrey about how Jeffrey used to be a boss in the streets, right? And she's like, listen, you know, you used to be a boss. Everybody used to be scared of you. Everybody used to tell legendary stories about you. Are you sure that this is what you want to do with your life? Work for the Banks family? I mean, what's your title? Is your title a house Negro? And he's like, no, I'm not a house Negro. My title is a house manager. And she's like, listen, you know, I think you could kiss that life goodbye, because do you really think that after this situation that the Banks family is going to trust you? And he tells Dominique, like, listen, I will never go back to working with you. Although Dominique is trying to say that she's trying to go clean or whatever, Jeffrey is like, I will never go back to working with you. You know, I'm rocking with the Banks family at this point. Also in this episode, we see that Pam and Jazz, their relationship or their affair or their just sneaky linking gets exposed. We see that Will and Carlton, they go to see Jazz because they're there to pick up something to help out, to fix out Uncle Phil's car that they just broke. So they're there, and then Pam walks in. And Carlton is like, hey, Auntie Pam, what you doing here? Right? And she's like, I'm just here to help Jazz out on some business dealings. And, you know, I'll leave you boys to it. I'm going to go. I'm going to leave. And Carlton is like, okay, well, tell Tyrone I said hi. And Jazz is like, well, who's Mr. Tyrone? And Carlton is like, that's her husband. And then we see that Pam, she's just walking out, but she cannot play it smooth to save her life. I mean, she had zero swag in that situation. So she walks out, and Will and Carlton proceed to clown and Jazz. They like, damn, you got a cougar, man. You ain't know she was married. And Jazz like, nah, you know, pretty much like he didn't have no idea that Pam was married. And now we know why, when they were linking up earlier in this episode and he asked to take her to dinner, now we know why, that she didn't want to go out in public with him, because she did not want to be seen with him because she married. Now back to Auntie Viv. My girl is stressed out on this episode, and I love Auntie Viv. I love her down. She is such a classy woman. I just love her. I love her voice. Even the way her voice is so endearing. It sounds like it's always about the crack, right? I just love me some Aunt Viv. But anyway, we see that she is back friends, like full-fledged friends with Erica. And I hate that for her, because she is so trusting. She is so loving, but I did not see them having a conversation about why their friendship ended. I mean, I think that Aunt Viv should at least check her, like, listen, I know you was trying to F on my man, but listen, how we gonna move forward from that? Because Aunt Viv could never, at this point, trust Erica around Phil. But anyway, Erica is telling her, like, listen, you know, at least you have a safety net. You have Phil. I know you got a lot of stress. You got a lot to do before the baby is born, but at least you got Phil. So that leads Aunt Viv to having a conversation with Phil alone later on. And she says, me and Erica have been chilling, you know, and she mentioned that you're my safety net. And I couldn't agree with her more. And I do want to know, like, what's going on with the whole money laundering thing? Are you 100% sure that this is going to have a happy ending? And Uncle Phil, he couldn't answer her. He really did not answer that question. You know, he was just trying to talk her down, but he's not sure himself that it is going to have a happy ending. In this whole episode, Aunt Viv is just stressing. We see her later on. She's on her laptop, and Jeffrey, he walks in, and he's like, oh, you're doing work on the weekend? You know, and she's like, well, I should be doing my work, but I'm here researching if the feds could take my house if my husband gets locked up. You know, and Jeffrey, he feels really bad. But in our head as the audience, we know that he's thinking about that conversation that he had earlier with Dominique when she said that the banks will never look at you the same again. And Aunt Viv is not looking at Jeffrey the same. But at the same time, Jeffrey needs to be patient. Like, the whole situation is not fully over with yet. Like, Jeffrey, you got to wait your turn to get back in good graces with this family. But anyway, Jeffrey walks away, and you could just see that he's like, damn, like, I'm not wanting here no more. Like, if Aunt Viv dissing me, Uncle Phil don't really want to be bothered with me, then I might as well go link back up with Dominique. Now back to Will and Carlton. They did end up fixing up Uncle Phil's side mirror that they broke. It was only after Aunt Viv chewed them out though. So they fixed up the side mirror, and they actually had a photo framed of Uncle Phil with his dad. So Uncle Phil, he's very emotional about this whole act of kindness. And he just tells the guys that he's just worried about his mortality at this point. And while he's saying this, he's drinking like a green juice, like a kale and cucumber juice. And he's just saying like he got a baby on the way. You know, he's just worried about living long. You know, he wants to be there for his son because right now he's at the same age that his father was when his father passed away from a heart attack. And he's just trying to live, you know. And at that moment, too, Uncle Phil gifts Will and Carlton with Lucille, the Mustang that they were fixing up. He's like, listen, this is yours to have. Just promise me that you'll ride my baby son around in the car, you know, show him the ropes. So I thought that was a really sweet and kind gesture. Like I said, this episode was just very emotional and a lot slower paced. So now the fellas, they want to all go out and take Lucille for a spin. Uncle Phil must have showed them the ropes, you know, show them how Lucille operates. So they're all about to go on a joyride, and Uncle Phil calls up Jeffrey like, listen, you know, you want to come out with us? We about to take Lucille for a spin. And Jeffrey lies and says, I'm about to turn in for the night. I'm a little bit tired. But we see that Jeffrey is back to meeting with Dominique. And he asks Dominique, like, what did you say about my future, what you would look like? Can we talk more about that? So Jeffrey is about to re-enter full-fledged into that gangster life. After everything that Phil did for you, Phil cleaning that money to pay your debt back, and now you want to go back and work with Dominique. I just think that's the ultimate betrayal. And I really hope that Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv find out what he's up to. So in the final scene of this episode, we see that Pam, she goes to talk to Aunt Viv, and she's going to confess that she's having an affair with Jazz. And she tells Aunt Viv, and Aunt Viv's response is epic. Again, Aunt Viv is such a class act. She's like, listen, that's your business. I don't care what you do behind closed doors. I will not judge you. And Pam says to Aunt Viv, and listen, I will not judge you either. And Aunt Viv like, hold up. What you mean you will not judge me? Kind of like, I don't got no dirt. What you talking about? And Pam says like, listen, you have been flagged by my organization for having inflated sales at Jazz's company. They're showing that the sales have been skyrocketing at the weed dispensary, and they're going to be looking into it. And Aunt Viv plays it off in that moment. She's like, listen, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, it must be some type of accounting error, right? And Pam was like, yeah, I know it must be because you and Uncle Phil are some of the most honest people that I know. And then we see Pam leaves out, right? And Aunt Viv, she's trying desperately to reach Uncle Phil, but we know that he's on that joyride with Lucille and Will and Carlton, and he is not answering the phone. And Aunt Viv is stressing so much that I think she's having contractions, like the baby is about to come out, or she's having some type of complications. I don't know what's about to happen, but nonetheless, episodes 4 and 5 straight fire. Guys, let me know down below if I missed anything. Let me know if you love Bel-Air as much as I do, and if you're sad that it is going to be ending. I mean, we only have 3 more episodes, but go ahead, turn your notifications on for the next recap. I love you all so much, and I appreciate you if you made it this far in a video. See you next time. Peace.